It's time to talk high end prospects. And just as I film this, another domino has fallen because we finally have seen the top prospect in all of baseball, Roman Anthony, get the call, and he's already playing for the Red Sox tonight. So, as far as beating the breakout, it's too late. Look, I've been talking for months about stashing Roman Anthony. If you didn't get him already, it's too late. If for some reason he is out there on a waiver wire in any of your leagues, you might want to consider picking him up right now. But there's nothing else to say there. So let's just see how Anthony does in the majors. But let's actually talk about another Sox player who is also getting the call. Not quite as exciting, all right, but Grant Taylor should be on your radar. Now, Grant Taylor is actually a White Sox farmhand, and you may know that he's a former teammate of Paul Skeens at LSU, but didn't quite have the same career because of injury. This is a Tommy John recipient who has very limited experience in the minors because of that. But so far, what we've seen has been very exciting. Last year, he pitched a total of 19 and 1/3 innings, mostly at the single A level. And sure, the numbers were good because not really very tough competition, but 32 strikeouts to only 2 walks. Yeah, 32 Ks in 19 innings, only 2 walks. This year at the double A level, 26 and 2/3 innings, he's got an ERA of 101, 0.86 whip, and a 36% strikeout rate. Now, with Taylor, the limited experience is understandable given his injury history, but it's also kind of odd the trajectory he's taken so far. And so when I say this could be the next Garrett Crochet, stay with me. I don't mean right here, right now, what Garrett Crochet is, but talking about a guy who obviously throws hard, has a ton of talent, but injuries, right, limiting him to the bullpen. He's got the stuff to be a closer. He's got a 4 pitch mix in order of effectiveness: fastball, slider, curve, and a changeup, which he has just started to introduce. Obviously, he can induce whiffs. We've seen that. So this is somebody you'd think they would want to make a starter, but it's weird what's happened this year. He started out in the rotation. In fact, his first 6 appearances were all as a starter, but in each one of those 6 appearances, he didn't go more than 3 innings. Actually, 5 of them, he went exactly 3 innings, and the other one was 2 1/3. And across those 6 starts, he only allowed a total of 3 earned runs in 17 1/3 innings, but he issued 10 walks. So then they put him in the bullpen, and in only 9 1/3 inning relief, only 1 walk. So the White Sox do have an opening in the rotation, as they pretty much always do. Like, I know they just brought up Mike Vasil and didn't do anything to make you think that he deserves to stay in the rotation. Sure, Taylor could take that spot. Taylor could be a starter, but that doesn't seem like the plan for the White Sox. It seems like they're just going to bring him along slowly, which is probably smart. Look, here's the fantasy angle here. Like, why should I care? He could be this team's closer right here, right now, because they basically don't have a closer. Now, they also don't win very many close games. I get that, but still, saves are saves, and this is a guy who just with his stuff alone could help you rack up some Ks as a reliever. All right, before we speculate on some more minor league players who don't have a taste of the majors yet, I got one more experienced name for you. This is different. I'm usually going to try to give you some names of players who are going to get called up before they get the call. I'm going to talk about a player who just today was sent back down to the minors. Michael McGreevy of the Cardinals. Now, McGreevy acquitted himself pretty well in his spot start, as he did last year. In fact, look at the numbers last year in his time with the Cardinals, toward the second half. 23 innings pitched, which included 3 starts. A 1.96 ERA, 0.78 whip. And so far this year, in his time up and down with the Cards, he had that 1 start, but he also had a total of 11 2/3 innings, 3.09 ERA, and a 0.86 whip. Only a 21% strikeout rate, slightly below the league average, but only a 2.3% walk rate. That makes up for it. McGreevy, not a hard thrower, but he's a command specialist, guy that you can hopefully count on to limit damage and just be effective in eating up some innings. And so the strikeouts won't be the key to his success, but those ratios are definitely appealing. So here's the question: as he just got sent back down, and the Cardinals, as of right now, still have a fully intact 5-man rotation, when is he going to be called back up? Well, it might be, I hope not, but it might be sooner than you think. So this year's breakout for them, Matt Liberatore, he's been experiencing what they call shoulder fatigue. Not a good sign. Again, it doesn't mean that there's anything more here. It could just be fatigue because he's not used to pitching this many innings in a season as a starter. And I mean, he's been great this year, But again, this is something to keep an eye on. Maybe it's just a short-term IL stint coming. Hopefully nothing more, and maybe it's nothing. Like, we might not see McGreevy for a while. I just don't know, but pitchers do tend to get injured. So if McGreevy does get recalled, I'm definitely going to have interest because he's shown that he can handle major league hitters, and I think that he'll continue to show what he has so far. All right, another pitcher who is potentially knocking down the door to get to the majors is going to be Chase Burns for the Cincinnati Reds. Now, don't confuse Burns with Chase Petty, their other high-end pitching prospect who did get a shot in the rotation and got absolutely torched in 2 turns. Now, Chase Petty is a good pitcher and he'll be back, and we're not giving up on him, but Chase Burns is actually this team's #1 prospect, and he's absolutely been dominant, which is why he got promoted to AAA recently. At the AA level, a 1.29 ERA and a 0.76 whip, along with 36% strikeout rate. You want to know the appeal here? How about this coming from the Fangraphs prospect report? Throws 100 and has 2 potentially devastating breaking balls. That sounds like a recipe for success, yeah. Those breaking balls being a slider and a curveball. Look, Chase Burns absolutely has the talent. I wish he was on a different team. I mean, obviously, the Rockies are by far the worst organization, not just for pitching, just period, but also especially for pitching. The Reds might be the next because Great American Ballpark obviously is a hitter's haven. So don't love the franchise, but still, it's not like he absolutely has no shot to succeed. We've seen what Andrew Abbott has done, Hunter Green. So don't let that be used against him if Chase Burns does get promoted within the next couple of weeks. I know they're going to give him some time at AAA, but like, if he's dominant for the next 2-3 starts, it may not be long. All right, not quite knocking down the door, but Adam Macko for the Toronto Blue Jays, a guy who just tossed 4 scoreless in his first taste of AAA, and this is a team that could use some help in that rotation. Now, if you assume that everything is just fine the way it is, or that Max Scherzer is going to come back to save the day, okay, then you can ignore this. But let's face it, Toronto will probably need some rotation help at some point. Unfortunately, the Blue Jays' other top starting prospects are done. I mean, this whole season is wiped out. Jake Bloss and Ricky Tiedemann, both Tommy John. And Mako himself just came off the 60-day IL, so this will take a little bit of time, but like I said, so far looking pretty good in rehab and his first start at AAA. It may not be as long of a path to the majors as some people think. Now, I do think that this is just a stash for Dynasty Keeper leagues, but for now, I'm going to keep an eye on Mako. The real question with Mako is whether he can really hang as a starter, because while he definitely can induce whiffs, but he also dishes out way too many free passes. That walk rate is high, so unless we see some major improvement there over the next few weeks at the AAA level, he may be slotted for a bullpen role. But like I said with Grant Taylor, that might not be the worst thing because it's not like Toronto's bullpen situation is that great. Jeff Hoffman has been on thin ice. Yimi Garcia on the IL. Maybe Mako winds up as a late inning option. And then a name you definitely got to keep an eye on. Not sure when Justin Crawford might make his way to Philly. But look, if you're excited about Chandler Simpson earlier in the year for Tampa, you should be just as excited, if not more, for Justin Crawford. Of course, this is the son of Carl Crawford, who Tampa Bay fans will remember fondly. A speedster. Yep, Crawford is definitely a speedster. He's also a top 100 overall prospect, the #3 prospect for the Phillies. In fact, he's 53rd overall in the top 100. And that's because he doesn't just bring plus speed, which he definitely has. He also can hit. So far this year, 52 games. He's got 23 steals, but he's also hitting .349. And that is at the AAA level in Reading. And look, 3 straight years now, multiple levels, he's had batting average over 300, a strikeout rate below 20%, and steals in abundance. So while there's not an obvious opening in the outfield for Philly, there could always be one, or maybe they decide this could be a better version of Johan Rojas. As with most speed-first players, Crawford not going to get you power, so just know this is a play for the speed and for the average, but also I think the fact that he has that already in his arsenal, the runs scored could be a definite advantage as well. All right, those are the prospects you need to stash right now. Look, we've been hitting on it last week. Told you about Ryan Ritter just days before he got called up. Before that, it was Marcelo Mayer. Who's going to be next on this list to make a splash? Well, grab him now before your league mates do. And also, while you're here, check out the latest video, Keep Trade Cut, so you know what to do with these struggling veterans that might be on your squad.